Now, first of all, before I get into the regular programme tonight, some news has just broken. And that news is a new poll. It was commissioned by The Times and The Sunday Times and carried out by YouGov. This poll shows, for the first time in polling history, the Reform Party has overtaken the Conservative Party in the polls. That's right, 19% for the Reform Party, 18% for the Conservative Party and 37% for the Labour Party. A larger than 20-point lead, but Reform 1 percentage point ahead of the Conservatives. Now, it must be said, there's a health warning to this. That is within the margin of error on this poll. But it is a symbolic moment in this general election campaign. We'll have more on that later in the programme. But now, today Sir Keir Starmer announced Labour's manifesto, and one thing is clear. Sir Keir wants you to believe that the Labour Party has changed. But is this true? Is the Labour Party now pro-growth, pro-business and pro-wealth? Well, let's take a look at the data. With both the Conservatives and Labour's manifestos, we can compare the projections of the overall tax burden under both parties. Now, the graph here shows tax as a share of GDP by the end of the decade. Current forecasts project the overall tax burden to reach 37% of GDP. Under a Conservative government, the tax burden is slightly less than those current forecasts, expected to increase nonetheless to 36.7%, the highest in 70 years. But with the Labour Party's announcement today of billions in new taxes, Labour's overall tax burden is projected to reach an all-time high, not just 70 years, higher than any time since 1688, when records began. The projection comes in at 37.4% of GDP. Now, time and time again, we hear from both leaders that taxes would not go up under their leadership, or indeed that they might come down. Both of these scenarios assume £25 billion in spending cuts, a new era of austerity across various departments, baked in under Jeremy Hunt's latest budget. Now, despite both of these parties seeming to commit to these cuts in their plans, the Institute of Fiscal Studies has called them fictitious cuts. Few seriously believe either party would push ahead with those budget reductions, so might it be the case that we're set for a further £25 billion in tax rises, over and above the tax rises that have already been announced? Where might those taxes come from? Well, perhaps a 2018 pamphlet from Rachel Reeves might give us a clue. She called for a radical overhaul of the tax system to raise, get this, over £20 billion a year. It all is starting to add up. The pamphlet went on to call for increasing council tax, introducing a landlord tax, an attack on pensions, a tax on land, an increase in inheritance tax, and more taxes on stocks, shares and investment. But it wasn't just 2018. As recently as 2021, Rachel Reeves said she wanted to hike taxes on those who get their incomes from stocks and shares and buy-to-let properties. Might it be that when Labour says it doesn't want to raise taxes on working people, it will instead raise over £20 billion in new taxes on those stocks?